The wind screamed across the frozen planet. Ethan Cole sat inside his small outpost, far from any city, deep in the white wastelands of the planet Valmara 7. Outside, a deadly blizzard raged, one of the worst he had seen in 5 years of living. Air. Ice slammed against the walls. The power flickered. He sipped a warm drink and stared at the security screens. Nothing moved. Nothing ever did in these storms. Then something did. A tiny, red light blinked on the screen. Motion. Sector 3. Ethan leaned forward. The camera was blurry, full of snow and static. But there two figures. Small, barely standing. What the hell? He pressed a button. The camera zoomed in. They were not human. Their shapes were thin and fragile. Their skin was pale blue, their clothes torn. One of them stumbled and fell face first into the snow. The other dropped to her knees, trying to help, but she was shaking badly. They would die out there. Ethan didn't think twice. He grabbed his thermal suit, slammed on his helmet, and rushed out the door. The cold hit like a hammer. His body screamed in protest. But he ran anyway, guided by the flickering light of the beacon he had set long ago. He found them. The taller one had fainted, half buried in snow. The smaller one looked up at him, her eyes glowing faintly in the dark, full of fear, confusion, and something else. Hope. I've got you, Ethan said softly, not sure if they understood him. You're safe now. He carried the older sister in his arms. The younger one followed, stumbling behind him. Back at the outpost, Ethan slammed the door shut and blasted the heaters. The temperature inside climbed fast. He laid the sisters on 2 sleeping pads near the fire. Their bodies were cold like ice. He carefully removed their frozen boots, gloves, and cloaks. Their skin was marked with red frostbite. He wrapped them in warm blankets and placed heat packs near their bodies. The smaller one opened her eyes first. They were bright silver. She looked at Ethan like a scared animal ready to run or scream. It's okay, he said calmly. You're not in danger. She didn't reply, just pulled the blanket tighter and held her sister's hand tightly. Hours passed. Ethan watched them closely. He gave them water, hot soup, and stayed quiet. He didn't want to scare them. By morning, both sisters were awake. They didn't speak his language, but they watched him closely. The younger one nodded slowly when he offered food. Again, she touched her sister's face, gently checking if she was still breathing. She'd be okay, Ethan said, even though they didn't understand. Suddenly, the power flickered again. The lights dimmed. Ethan stood up and walked to the control panel. Damn weather, he muttered. He didn't notice the younger sister standing beside him. She looked at the panel, then at him. Then she said, in a quiet voice, "Human name, Ethan?" Ethan froze. "How do you know my name?" he asked, surprised. She pointed at his chest, at his ID badge. Then she smiled a little, tired but curious. Ethan? Safe. That word hit him. Safe. What had they run from? Why were they out there, in a deadly storm, with no gear, no ship, no help? He looked at them again, not just as aliens, but as people. They were scared, alone, cold, and now they were in his home. A long silence followed. Outside, the blizzard still screamed. But inside, for the first time in years, Ethan didn't feel alone. He looked at the two sisters, one asleep, the other watching him with tired but thankful eyes. Something inside him shifted. "I don't know who you are," he said softly, "but I'm not letting anything happen to you. Not while you're under my roof." Ethan couldn't sleep. The storm outside had calmed, but the storm inside his mind was just starting. He sat at his desk, staring at the small portable scanner. It beeped softly as it finished the scan of the older alien sister's DNA. He had taken a small sample of her hair, just to check for any infections or diseases. But what he saw on the screen made his heart stop. Species: Elvari status: extinct, declared year 6281. Match: 99.8% genetic purity. Impossible, Ethan whispered. The Elvari were a legend. A peaceful ancient race said to be wiped out in a galactic purge over 200 years ago. No confirmed sightings. No survivors. Nothing. And yet 2 of them were sleeping in his outpost. He stood and looked back at the room. The sisters were curled up together on a blanket, warm now, breathing steady. The older one was still unconscious, but her color had returned. The younger one, maybe 16 in human years, watched him with those strange silver eyes. She looked calm now. Trusting. Ethan sat beside her, speaking slowly. You're Elvari. How are you alive? She didn't answer. But after a moment, she raised her hand and pointed at the sky through the window. Ship. Boom. She made a small explosion motion with her hands. Then she touched her chest. Run, snow, cold. It wasn't much, but it said enough. They had crashed. Escaped something terrible. Hunted, maybe. Ethan leaned forward. Were others with you? The girl didn't speak, but her eyes filled with tears. She turned her face away. That was his answer. Ethan's heart tightened. He stood and grabbed his datapad. He opened an encrypted message and sent a private alert to a deep science channel used by old researchers, archaeologists, and explorers. I have found 2 living Elvari. Location classified. More details to come. He turned the signal to low power mode. No tracking. He wasn't sure who to trust yet. The next day, the older sister woke up. She sat up fast, panicked, but calmed when she saw her younger sister safe and asleep beside her. Ethan entered quietly with a warm drink. She tensed, but did not attack. I'm Ethan, he said slowly. You're safe. She looked at him. Then, with a tired voice, she spoke just one word. Why? Ethan blinked. Why? What? She repeated it. Why? Help. He sat down. Because you needed it. The alien woman stared at him for a long time. Her face was still, but her eyes were full of old pain. Old fear, she whispered. No one help Elvari. Not anymore. Ethan's voice became hard. I don't care what the galaxy says. You were dying. That was enough. The woman slowly nodded. Her hand reached for her sister's. She held it gently. My name, she said slowly, is Lyra. Her name, sorry. Ethan smiled. Nice to meet you, Lyra. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A warning tone beeped from the console. Unregistered drone detected. Perimeter breach. Ethan ran to the screen. A small black dot hovered near the edge of his compound. A drone, military grade, silent, fast, and not his. Damn it. He turned back, but Lyra was already standing, eyes sharp. They found us, she whispered. Ethan's voice dropped. Who? She looked him in the eye. The ones who erased us. That night, the wind picked. Up again. But this time, it wasn't just snow blowing through the valley. Something was coming. Something that didn't want Lyra and Sari to be found alive. And Ethan, the lonely man who once fixed machines and kept to himself, had a choice to make. Run. Or stand between them and death. He looked at the 2 sisters. He already knew the answer. Asterisk. The snow fell heavier that night, but it wasn't natural. Ethan stood at the outpost window, staring into the darkness. The wind howled, but it wasn't just wind anymore. It was mixed with something else. A low hum. Almost like a machine hiding inside the storm. He checked the outer scanners. The drone was gone, but its signal still echoed in the system. Like a shadow refusing to fade. In the main room, Lyra stood beside her sleeping sister. Her hand was pressed against the wall, feeling the vibrations. "They're close," she whispered. Ethan looked at her. "You can feel them?" She nodded. "They fly silent, use ice to cover their sound. But I hear it. I know it." Ethan grabbed his old pulse rifle from the cabinet. It was dusty, unused for years, but it still worked. He turned to Lyra. "If they're coming for you, they'll have to come through me." She stared at him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "You are not like others." "Maybe not," Ethan said, "but I'm still human. And humans protect what's theirs." 2 hours passed. The wind howled louder. Then it stopped. Total silence. Too quiet. Ethan checked the motion detectors. Still nothing. Then a flicker. Zone 7. He zoomed. In. His blood ran cold. A shape stood just outside the camera's edge. Tall. Thin. Almost like a person. But not quite. The image glitched when it moved. Then it looked directly into the camera. "No way," Ethan whispered. The screen went black. At that same moment, the outpost lights died. Darkness. Then tap. 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 3 sharp knocks on the outer metal door. Liara grabbed Sari and pulled her behind the supply crates. Her silver eyes glowed faintly in the dark. Ethan raised his rifle and walked toward the door. Tap. Tap. Again. He reached the control panel and activated manual override. Just a small peek. The door opened an inch. A long, thin metallic finger pushed through the gap. Then a voice, cold, emotionless, spoke through the wind. "Turn over the fugitives. You are not part of this. Comply, and you will be spared." Ethan slammed the door shut. "Yeah," he muttered. "I don't think so." He turned to Lyra. "Who the hell are they?" Lyra spoke slowly. "They are harvesters. Machines built by the Dominion. They erase bloodlines. Clean the past. They wipe out my people. Now, we're the last 2. Ethan's hands tightened around the rifle. "Not while I'm breathing." He activated the outer defenses, old, weak, but still working. Auto turrets came to life. Floodlights beamed into the storm. Through the snow. 3 black shapes moved. Fast, silent, smooth, not touching the ground. The turrets opened fire. BZZ to BZZ to crash. 1 harvester went down. The others dodged. Too fast. They launched a spinning disc thing, and 1 turret exploded. "They're inside the fence," Ethan shouted. "Trap them," Lyra said. "Seal back gate. Force them in." Ethan hit the CONTROLS. A loud slam echoed through the outpost. Rear door locked. Now they had 1 way in, and it was covered. The door shook as the harvesters tried to break it down. "Get to the ship," Ethan told Lyra. "Take Sari. If I fail, you fly." Lyra looked at him, then grabbed his wrist. "If you fall, we stay." Ethan nodded. Then the wall exploded. Boom! Metal flew. Snow rushed in. 1 harvester floated through the smoke, its face blank, its arm a sharp blade of red light. It saw Lyra. And charged. Ethan stepped in front, fired. Boom! The harvester spun back, hissing. The second one flew in from the roof. Lyra screamed, raising her hand. A strange blue glow burst from her palm. Energy. The creature stopped, mid-air shaking, then dropped like a stone. Ethan blinked. "You didn't tell me you could do that." "I forgot," Lyra said, breathing hard. "I haven't used my gift in years." The last harvester charged, but Sari, awake now, stood with her eyes glowing bright white. She whispered something in Elvari. The creature stopped, then shattered into dust. Silence. The fight was over, but the message was clear. The galaxy believed the Elvari were gone, but now someone knew they weren't, and they wouldn't stop until they finished the job. Ethan looked at the sisters. He wasn't just protecting survivors now. He was protecting the last hope of a lost species. And they were no longer guests. They were his family. Asterisk. The storm had passed. The outpost was quiet now. But the silence felt heavy, like something was still watching. Ethan stood outside, rifle in hand, staring at the crater where the wall used to be. The harvesters were gone, destroyed. But it wasn't over. He could feel it in his gut. Lyra stepped. Beside him, her face calm but distant. "There will be more," she said. "They always come in waves." Sari held her sister's hand tightly. She was still shaking, even though she had shown power the night before, power Ethan didn't understand. He turned to Lyra. "You said you crashed here. Is your ship still out there?" Lyra nodded slowly. "Buried, deep under the ice. But still breathing." That word breathing stuck with him. "Can we get to it?" he asked. She hesitated, then said, "Yes, but the way is dangerous. It was hidden for a reason." They left before sunrise. Ethan took his snow crawler, a bulky machine made for travel across frozen lands. Lyra sat beside him. Sari rode in the back, covered in thick furs. They traveled across frozen hills, past dead forests covered in white. For hours, there was nothing. Then they reached a jagged cliff. Below it, an old glacier cracked open like a wound. "This is the place," Lyra said. Ethan looked down. The ice glowed faintly blue, unnatural. They descended carefully, ropes tied to metal anchors. At the bottom, hidden beneath layers of snow, was a shape smooth, dark, metallic, a ship. Ancient, silent. Ethan wiped the frost away. A glowing hand. Panel pulsed softly. Lyra placed her palm on it. The door hissed open. Warm light spilled out, and for the first time, Ethan saw what the Elvari once were, builders of beauty and wonder. Inside, the walls were covered with glowing veins of crystal. Symbols floated in the air, written in a language he didn't know. Sari smiled for the first time. "Home." Lyra walked forward, her hand brushing over a console. The lights grew brighter. A soft hum filled the air. "She still lives, Lyra," whispered. Ethan followed, cautious but curious. "What is this ship?" Lyra turned to him. "It's not just a ship. It's a sanctuary, a library, a seed of what my people once were. It holds knowledge, history, power." She walked to a glowing sphere and placed her hand on it. A projection filled the room. Stars, maps, data, genetic codes. Ethan stared in. "Oh, this could change everything." Lyra nodded. "That's why they want us gone. If this truth spreads, the Dominion falls." Ethan looked at her. "Then we have to protect it." But Lyra's face grew dark. "There's more." She walked to a sealed chamber. The door opened slowly. Inside was a stasis pod. And in it, a child. Elvari, younger than Sari, eyes closed, breathing faintly. Ethan stepped back. "Is she alive?" "Yes," Lyra said. "She is the last of the royal bloodline. If she dies, MY people die forever." He stared at the small figure inside the pod. This wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This was a battle for a legacy. Suddenly, a loud beep echoed through the ship. Ethan ran back to his scanner. A signal. Weak, but close. Someone else was out. "There. They've found us," he said. Lyra's eyes flashed. "Then we fight, or we fly." Ethan looked around the ship. He had an idea. "What if we do both?" That night, inside the ship, they made a plan. Ethan would reroute the ship's old defense system, activate the energy field buried under the glacier. Lyra and Sari would protect the stasis pod and prepare to fly the ship. If needed, they didn't know how much time they had. But Ethan was sure of one thing now. He was no longer just a man hiding from life. He was standing between extinction and survival, and he would not back down. Far above, in orbit, a black ship moved through the stars. Voice whispered through the comms. The Elvari are alive. Deploy the Reapers. Finish what we started. The glacier groaned. Ethan stood inside the ancient Elvari ship, sweat on his forehead despite the cold outside. The defense systems were charging. Blue lines of energy ran along the walls like lightning trapped in glass. Lyra stood at the control deck. Sari guarded the stasis pod with the child inside. Outside, the sky was turning black. Not night ships. Dozens of black shapes dropped from orbit. Silent and fast. Ethan looked at the radar. They're here. Lyra's voice was calm, but sharp. Reapers, biomechs, half machine, half monster. They don't stop. He grabbed his rifle and slammed a fresh power cell in. Let's make them wish they had. The ground shook as the first Reapers landed. They didn't speak, didn't warn. They attacked. Red beams cut through the snow. Explosions rocked the glacier. The outer hull of the Elvari ship held strong. For now. Inside, Ethan rushed to the main gate. He looked at Lyra. If I fall, lock this place down and don't look back. She stepped forward, placed a hand on his chest. You fall. We all fall. He nodded. Then the gate burst open. Boom. The first Reaper charged in, tall, metallic, claws glowing with red light. It screamed a high-pitched signal meant to confuse enemies. Ethan didn't flinch. He fired. Boom. Boom. The Reaper fell back, sparks flying. Two more rushed in behind. Lyra raised her hand. A wave of blue light exploded from her palm. The energy hit the second Reaper, slowing it. Sari, silent until now, stood behind her sister. Her eyes began to glow. She raised her hands. Crack. A bolt of pure white energy shot out. The third Reaper turned to ash mid-air. Ethan turned and looked at them in awe. You're not just survivors, he said. You're warriors. No, Lyra said. We're queens of a dead world. The ship's alarm screamed. Hull breach east side. They're trying to flank us, Ethan said. Split up. He ran toward the east corridor. There, in the narrow tunnel of crystal and steel, two Reapers had broken through. Ethan ducked behind cover and tossed a pulse grenade. Boom. The blast echoed through the glacier. One Reaper flew backward, cut in. Half. The second crawled, damaged but still alive. It looked up at him, red eyes burning. You are not Elvari, it said in a broken voice. No, Ethan replied, raising his rifle. I'm human. He fired once. The Reaper fell, back. In the main chamber, Lyra struggled. More Reapers had entered. One grabbed her by the arm and threw her across the room. She slammed into the wall, gasping. Sari screamed and stepped in front of her. The Reaper raised its claw. Then a blast of fire. Ethan had returned. He carried a scorched plasma launcher he found in the old storage bay. The Reaper disintegrated. He knelt beside Lyra. You okay? She nodded, weak but alive. Don't stop. Ethan turned to the last wave of Reapers, 6 of them, all armed, all ready. He stood up straight. Come on then, he whispered. Let's dance. What happened next was chaos. Blinding lights, explosions, screams of metal and fire. Ethan fought like a man with nothing left to lose, but he wasn't fighting alone. Lyra joined him, her powers glowing bright blue, forming shields of energy. Sari moved like wind, her hands glowing white, cutting through machines like paper. Together they held the line. Together they stood. Finally, silence. Smoke filled the ship. Ethan fell to one knee, breathing hard. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. The Reapers were gone, but so was the outer hull. The Elvari ship was dying. Lyra limped to the stasis pod. The child inside still breathed, but barely. We must leave, she said. Ethan nodded. Can it fly? She looked at the controls. Double quotes. Yes, but only once. As the ship powered up, Ethan looked back at the glacier, his outpost, his tools, his quiet, lonely life all gone. But in their place, something greater, a new purpose, a new family. As the ship rose into the sky, cutting through the smoke and into the stars, Ethan held onto the railing and whispered, "Let them come. We're not hiding anymore." Far above, a Dominion warship received the message. Target escaped. Human assisted. Protocol. Terminate Earth. Asterisk. The stars stretched wide around them. The Elvari ship floated quietly in deep space, leaving behind the broken glacier world. Its engines hummed softly, repaired just enough for this journey. Inside, Ethan sat near the stasis pod, watching the small Elvari child sleep peacefully. Her color was returning. Her chest moved gently. Alive. Lyra walked over, her arms still wrapped in bandages. She sat beside him without a word. For a while, they just listened to the ship breathe. Then she spoke. She is the last child of the royal line. Her name is Elinari. Ethan nodded slowly. She'll live now, because of you. No, Lyra said softly, because of you. Sari entered, holding a warm drink for Ethan. She smiled, small but real. She had changed. The fear in her eyes was gone. She now walked with quiet strength. Ethan looked at them both. You too should find your people. Maybe there are others, somewhere. Lyra looked away. There are whispers, old signals in deep space, hidden colonies. But if they hear we survived, if they know what you did, they will come. Ethan raised an eyebrow. And the Dominion? Lyra's. Silver eyes narrowed. They will come too, in force. The ship's scanners beeped. A neutral planet floated ahead. A trade hub. Peace zone. Ethan stood. We rest, refuel, then we decide what's next. The ship docked quietly, but the moment they stepped out into the station, people stopped and stared. To Elvari, a human beside them. The rumors had already spread. Whispers ran through the crowd. They're supposed to be extinct. That's a human with them? That's the one from Velmara? The Protector. An old alien merchant bowed his head. May peace walk with the last daughters of Elver. Lyra simply nodded. Peace follows the brave. In the quiet of a rented room, Lyra and Sari sat across from Ethan. The air between them was full of unspoken words. And Lyra leaned forward. You gave us more than life. Ethan, you gave us hope. Sari nodded. You gave us a home. Ethan laughed softly. A cold metal outpost isn't much of a home. Lyra placed her hand over his. Double quotes. No, you are. Silence. Sari smiled shyly. We were always told that Elvari mate for life. That? Our hearts choose once, and only once. Ethan blinked. What are you saying? Lyra looked into his eyes. We were sisters, but we were dying. Lost, alone, until you. You pulled us from the storm. Held us when no one else would. Fought for us when the galaxy tried to erase us. She reached forward and touched his chest. You are no longer just Ethan of Earth. You are now bound to us, not by blood, but by choice. Sari stepped forward. And by love. Ethan felt something crack deep in his heart, like ice melting after a long winter. He had spent years alone in silence. Now, he had family. He had purpose. And two alien sisters who looked at him not as a hero, but as home. Days passed. News spread. Across distant systems. Hidden Elvari colonies awoke. Old allies reached out. The story of the human who saved the last. Princesses became a symbol. And in dark corners of space, the Dominion whispered in fear, because the galaxy had changed. One man, two sisters, and a child. had rewritten history. And they were just getting started. In a garden under soft stars, Lyra stood beside Ethan. Sari chased the small Ilvari child, laughing. For the first time in many years, no one was running. Lyra leaned on his shoulder. We used to believe Earth was weak, soft, lost in its own cold storms. Ethan smiled. Maybe. It was, until you found me. She held his hand. No, Ethan, you found us. And now they call you more than human. They call you our guardian, our fire. They call you husband.